Ever heard of a killer? I drop bombs like Hiroshima.
So I said, look at LeakYou video. What the fuck is LeakYou? Is it like a site? What's LeakYou? LeakYou. Is it a YouTube channel? Oh shit. Oh, all right, bet. Here we go.
Please hit the like. Thank you.
One, two, three, four.
Wow, you guys are really piling up in here on X. Shout out to you. We appear to have reached a plea deal. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not actually a plea deal. Thug has decided to plea out on his case in an open, or I believe it is I can't remember the term, if it's open or non-open, but he's thrown himself on the mercy of the court, and we are going to take a look really quick at this live proceeding, folks. Let's
Do you understand that if you
listen
are
in.
placed on probation of any
He
kind by
could
this
go home
court,
today, guys.
you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental unit or any special conditions of probations without being subject to revocation for the balance of the sentence the court imposes?
Yes, I know.
Do you understand that you are not allowed to possess or use a firearm while on probation?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you are not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation, just like a conviction at a trial would, and that this is true regardless of any advice by your attorney or anyone else?
Yes.
Do you understand that neither the court, your attorney, nor the district attorney's office has anything to do with parole, and the Department of Corrections or Board of Pardons and Paroles, and that no one can guarantee parole no matter what anyone has told you?
Yes.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction, just as there would be from a conviction following a trial? For example, your guilty plea may affect the right to vote, the right to hold public office, the right to serve on a jury, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. Do you understand that, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or if you use a firearm in a crime, you will be guilty of a felony, which may carry a sentence of up to 1 to 15 years in prison?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including any mental health defenses, by entering a plea of guilty?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you went to trial, you would have the right to that if you continued at trial, rather, you would continue to have the right to a trial by jury, the right to see, hear, and confront witnesses called to testify against you, and the right to testify or to remain silent and not incriminate yourself. Do you understand all of those things?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are giving up the following rights? The right to a trial by jury. Do you understand that?
Yes.
The right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself.
Yes.
The right to confront witnesses against you.
Yes.
The right to continued assistance of counsel hired by you or to court-appointed counsel if you cannot afford an attorney at the continued trial of your case.
Yes.
The right to the presumption of innocence.
Yes.
The right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence.
Yes.
The right to subpoena witnesses and compel the production of evidence.
Yes.
The right to have the charges against you proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes.
The right to appeal if convicted of these charges after a trial. Do you understand?
Yes.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter a guilty plea?
No.
Is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
Yes.
Well, Your Honor, may I interject?
You may.
Your Honor, on count 1, which is the racketeering conspiracy count, Mr. Williams is tendering a plea under nolo contendere. As to count 56, which is participation in a criminal street gang activity as being a leader or a supervisor or organizer, Mr. Williams is also tendering a plea to this honorable court as under nolo contendere. The balance of the counts, so he is tendering a guilty plea.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
would the court like to hear from the state or not?
About the NOLO issues?
Yes, yes.
Sure.
Your Honor, the state asked that the court not accept a nolo plea and require either a guilty plea or a not guilty plea as to these charges.
All right. I'm going to permit a NOLO plea as to counts 1 and 56.
All right. Mr. Williams, as to count 57, participation in criminal street gang activity, how do you plead?
I plead guilty.
As to count 58, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 59, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 60, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 61, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, how do you plead?
Guilty.
And as to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, how do you plead?
No law.
As to count 56, participation in criminal street gang activity under the leadership charge, how do you plead?
No law.
I think you didn't ask about count 62.
As to count, thank you, Your Honor. As to count 62, possession of a machine gun, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Are you pleading guilty to the offenses you have indicated because you are in fact guilty of these charges?
Yes.
All right. Are your guilty pleas and your NOLO pleas freely and voluntarily given with the full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes.
Do you understand that you may have only a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes.
Do you understand that you have only 4 years from today's date for a felony charge and 12 months from today's date you don't have a misdemeanor charge? But to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness and constitutionality of this guilty plea.
Yes.
Your Honor, also, do you?
You have
my-
30 days from
I was-
today to file a direct appeal from this guilty plea and until the end of this term of court to file a motion seeking to withdraw the guilty plea, which does not mean it would be granted, but that's the time period, okay?
What's a direct appeal?
Well, you can talk to your attorneys more about it, but it would be up to one of the, like the Court of Appeals, I think is where this one would go. There's just the time periods.
And Your Honor, the state, in addition to the sentence we are asking that the court to impose,
Okay.
we would also be asking the court to require or to forfeit, have defendant forfeit all of the property that has been seized and that is currently being held, that was found or recovered or taken from his home after it was searched on May 9th.
Do you have any kind of list of what that property is? I mean, I'm not familiar with what was seized.
And Your Honor,
We
we're not
do, and
agreeing.
that-
Oh, I know, I mean, I assume y'all aren't agreeing to anything.
We're not
You
agreeing
would
to that.
present it as a negotiated plea.
We're not, but we do have a list of the
All right.
property items.
Do you have it where available right now?
Yes, actually, would the court permit us to send it electronically?
Sure,
Because we
that's fine. And then if that is not imposed as a condition, is it just get litigated as like any forfeiture matter?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
it
ci-
would be litigated
it's a
later
c-
on,
It's
yes.
a civil separate filing
Okay.
in this court. It's not related to the criminal.
All right.
It's related case, but it's unrelated.
Understood.
And we are sending that to Your
All right.
Honor
Thank you.
at this time. And as it relates to the conditions of a conviction under 1615-4, Your Honor, we would ask, or as part of the sentence, defendant would be required to adhere to the requirements, the sentencing requirements of the gang statute, which at least in part require that he not associate with any gang members whatsoever. And I can read the rest of that into the record if the court requires, or I can continue with the factual basis.
All right, and let me ask you, because I know that at least while y'all were negotiating, one of the things that I guess was being negotiated was some exception for, I think, somebody that is contractually obligated on his record label. Is that something that the state would still be in agreement to?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
All right. Your Honor, as part of the requirements of 1615-4,
Yes.
defendant would, one moment, Your Honor. Under 1615-4, in addition to any other penalty provided by the code section, all sentences imposed under the code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly
Hold on
have.
just a tad, because there's a court reporter taking it down. And when we start reading, we read really fast. So go ahead.
This code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any other member or associate of a criminal street gang, shall not participate in any criminal gang activity, and in cases involving a victim, shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any such victim or any member of any such victim's family or household. So that is, and we've listed in our indictment the victims of the crimes, the overt acts that have been committed, and under the basic conspiracy law, those are the victims that we are naming. Your Honor, as this case has been tried and would continue to be tried until the state completed its case in chief, the evidence has shown that the defendant, throughout the time between 2013 to 2022, conspired with both indicted and unindicted co-conspirators to participate in the enterprise known as Young Slime Life, or YSL, through a pattern of racketeering activity. Throughout that time, multiple conspirators, both indicted and unindicted, and including the defendant, have committed overt acts intended to further the enterprise itself. With regard to the defendant, as far back, the evidence has shown, as 2013, the defendant, along with other YSL founding members, Walter Murphy, for one, committed an aggravated assault and armed robbery against a Derek Dotson. The court has heard evidence of that presented through Adrian Bean, who was a co-conspirator in that particular act. The armed robbery of an Archillian Bennett back in 2013. As alleged in the indictment, defendant and unindicted and indicted co-conspirators committed acts to further YSL that included drug sales, aggravated assault, and murder. They used and furthered, rather, this conspiracy by using social media posts and music to assert the violent nature of and the dominance of Young Slime Life, which is also known as YSL. The defendant is charged with being a leader of the gang YSL, and evidence has been presented by accomplices and co-founders of YSL, Trontavia Stevens and Walter Murphy, and evidence would have been presented, in the words of the defendant himself, that the defendant, as shown by some of his own social media postings, was the founder, one of the founders of YSL, along with Mr. Stevens and Mr. Murphy. YSL formed, according to the evidence that has come out in this trial, in 2012, 2013, under the former version of the name of the gang called Rock Crew, or Raised on Cleveland. The court has heard evidence of the 2014 and 2015 incidents that have involved conflicts between YSL members and IF gang members, that included someone shooting the window of Mr. Williams' car and armed individuals rushing outside during shootings at Club Crucial to ensure Mr. Williams' safety, shootings at a place called the Dugout where armed individuals rushed to ensure Mr. Williams' safety, shootings at Mr. Kelvin Watts committed by members of YSL, communication with members of YSL after those incidents, and ultimately the murder of Donovan Thomas at the hands of members of YSL. The evidence has shown and will show that on January 10th of 2015, members of YSL drove a car rented by the defendant, a gray Infiniti, and drove past Mr. Thomas as he stood outside of a barber shop congregating with friends, and unloaded an array of bullets on Mr. Thomas, hitting him, his Chevrolet Tahoe, and 2 other persons in the process. Mr. Thomas died from those bullets. Phone records show that communication was held between Mr. Williams, Mr. Kelvin Treadwell, Mr. Demise McMullen, corroborating accomplice testimony that has been presented in this courtroom regarding what happened, who committed the murder, and what happened to the guns and the vehicles that were used in the murder. After the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., the members of YSL responsible for the murder and members of YSL who were not responsible for the murder congregated at Mr. Williams' condominium called the Sky House, and they all made plans and later either drove or flew down to Miami. Prior factual acknowledgments by members of YSL include that Mr. Williams gave each of the persons who accompanied him to Miami money to lay low as they left the city following the murder of Mr. Thomas. The evidence has shown the ensuing conflict that occurred after Mr. Thomas was killed. It has shown shootings at Mr. Rashawn Bennett's home, shootings at Mr. Darren Mills' mother's home, and I said Mr. Rashawn Bennett's mother's home. Shootings unrelated to the conflict with members of If Gang, of a Lil Wayne tour bus. That shooting followed the confronting by Atlanta Police Department of members of YSL that drove to the compound where Lil Wayne was making an appearance, and who drove there with the intent to disrupt and cause harm and to shoot up Lil Wayne's tour bus. Lil Wayne was another artist with whom Mr. Williams was having conflict, according to the testimony that had been presented. Mr. Williams had come out at that time with a mixtape that carried the name of an album that Mr. Carter was set to release and was not able to because his label would not allow that to happen. That caused a contractual or the threat of a lawsuit. It caused Mr. Williams angst. He posted about it. He said derogatory things about the persons who were threatening him with the lawsuit. And as a result, he had to rename his mixtape to something different than what he initially intended. The person who ultimately was convicted of shooting that tour bus up, Jimmy Winfrey, is a person that I believe that recordings have come in regarding jail phone calls, rather, from Mr. Winfrey and members of YSL regarding communication about getting a lawyer. Following the shootings that occurred in 2015, music, social media postings, and other overt acts were committed by Mr. Williams and other members of YSL, taunting members of groups that they considered opposition to YSL, posting of threats of violence by members of YSL against those people. Specifically, the music, Your Honor, contained lyrics such as the following: I rep my life for real, for slimes, you know I kill. I shoot at your mammy, need to stand down. I up my stamina, take it to trial, get an appeal, take it to trial, pay for that casket, that's just if we whack 'em. YSL slimy and shady, watch me whack that bitch, pop 'em like a cyst, Glock with the assist. It also consisted of a song wherein Mr. Williams sang or rapped the lyrics, hey, this is that slime shit, that YSL shit, killing 12 shit, fuck a jail shit. I'm in the VIP, I got the pistol on my hip, fuck the police. You praying that you live, I'm praying that I hit, this that slime shit. 100 rounds in a Tahoe, I'm prepared to take them down. Got banana clips for all these ends acting monkey. This is that slime shit. This is that mob shit. Fuck the judge, YSL. This that mob life. Defendant Williams released a video on YouTube of a song wherein he states, "I shot at his mommy. Now he no longer mentions me. Act like you want war and they gonna smoke you like a blunt." Another song, "I escaped every one of the licks because I was supposed to be rich. I don't care nothing about a cop. I'm just telling you how it is. I done did the robbing. I done did the jacking. Now I'm full rapping. Gave the lawyer close to $2 million. He handles all the killing. We don't speak about shit on wax. It's all my business. We know to kill the biggest cats of all kittens." In another song, "I was on Cleveland, stuck like a magnet, bitch ass N-word, pay for that casket, that's just if we whack 'em." In yet another song, Defendant Williams raps, "Red just like Elmo, but I never fucking giggle. YSL won't fold. Pick his ass off from the balcony, wipe an end's nose. I'm gonna F for the cash, then she getting robbed by Tick," a reference to Trontavia Stevens. "All I ever wanted was the money. Put your hands in the air if you dare. F and N, put him in a wheelchair." And even later on, Mr. Williams, and I believe that this was in 2019, made a post.
Listen, folks, as we continue to listen in on Fanny, continuing, her, this plea bargain, this guilty plea that Jeffrey Williams, aka Young Thug, has put in. He has agreed to plead guilty. Specifically, he did plead no contest to, there were 2 additional counts, conspiracy to violate RICO and leading a criminal street gang. He pled nolo contendere to those 2 charges, no contest. Now, the state is saying that it is recommending a sentence of 45 years, with 25 being served in custody, followed by 20 years of probation. The state appears to still be pushing this really, really hard, wanting to see Mr. Williams go to prison. This is a blind plea. Young Thug is throwing himself to the mercy of the judge when the judge does move to sentence him in these cases. Again, Brian Steele, Young Thug's attorney, continues to stand by his side, and one of the best attorneys, from my understanding, in the state of Georgia. But we are continuing to listen in on this plea deal, this plea.
With respect to the Donovan Thomas murder, the court has heard evidence through phone records that within 6 minutes of the shooting of Donovan Thomas Jr., a phone call was made from Demise McMullen's cell phone to Defendant Williams' phone. And then immediately after that call, Mr. Williams calls his sister Dora Greer and then calls Kelvin Treadwell. There's then a series of calls between Dora Greer and Treadwell, and then Treadwell calls Demise McMullen, or Nard. All of those calls happen within 15 minutes of the 911 call. And as I have stated before, the court has heard accomplice prior inconsistent statements about who committed the murder itself and what happened afterwards. The conflict between YSL and members of If Gang continued into 2019, wherein Mr. Williams raps the lyrics that I referred to earlier. In May 2019, a YSL member shot multiple times at a vehicle owned by Rayshawn Bennett, a black and red Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. At the time was being driven by a Milton Howard Jr. It was after that incident, later in August 2019, that Defendant Williams posted on his page the language, YFN, if I ain't like what you do for your mother and kids, I would have been killed you. The post was then deleted from his account. Through text messages of a co-conspirator, Marquavius Huey, there was communication between Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams, both in January and in September of 2020. On January 19th, 2020, Mr. Williams sent a flyer to Marquavius Huey with the performance location of Rayshawn Bennett, or YFN Lucci. And when he sent that, he sent it with the message, "Handle that tonight, SLAT, S-L-A-T-T. Mr. Huey responded, SLAT, S-L-A-T-T. On September 2nd, 2020, Mr. Huey sent a flyer to Mr. Williams with another performance location of YFN Lucci, and Mr. Williams responded, SLATty, that is S-L-A-T-T-Y, handle and stay very low. Mr.
Now, understand something, folks, as we continue to watch this deal, this plea deal take place, this guilty plea that Thug is doing, essentially throwing himself at the mercy of the court, this non-negotiated plea. Thug, who is now facing a lot of years in prison, the prosecution was actually, and Thug was near a plea deal that would have released him from jail today on 15 years of probation. All right. They could not come to agreement on his release conditions. And now prosecutors are recommending the 25 years in prison. So understand that the prosecution was willing to watch Jeffrey Williams walk out, go free today, released to probation, do 15 years of probation, which I feel like probation is just another way to hem somebody up. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. They could not agree on his conditions of release. Then prosecution went in and said, okay, we're going to do we're going to recommend 25 years. As of 25 years is not an insane amount of time. Young Thug and his lawyer continue to stand there very stoically.
To Mr. Adams for some type
Again,
of
the longest running criminal trial in the history of Georgia.
Mr. Adams reached out to Mr. Garlington about the payment for the completion. On February the 22nd, 2022, YSL co-conspirator and co-indictee Christian Eppinger called YSL co-conspirator Antonio Sumlin to get permission to finish what Mr. Myrick could not complete, that is the killing of Mr. Bennett. Mr. Eppinger asked for payment for a lawyer. However, these calls were intercepted and Mr. Bennett was relocated. In March 2022, information about the stabbing made the news, and shortly thereafter, a series of violent offenses occurred. On March 11, 2022, YSL associates Christian McMiller and Darius Ford were gunned down. Mr. McMiller is a childhood friend of Mr. Williams. Mr. Ford was also a friend of Mr. Williams. On March 12th, the day after, there was a shootout near the Cleveland Avenue area. A shooting by a YSL associate, Stephen Harris, in YFN territory occurred, and a YFN member was shot in the head. March 11th through March 14th, there were a number of social media posts going back and forth between members of YSL and YFN. One of them was a post by Shannon Stillwells. We ain't the only ones who ain't gonna be crying, that's going to be crying. After a posting was made by Mr. Watts picturing him, Mr. Shamel Drinks, and Mr. Jasper Walters. On March 14th, 2022, after YSL members spotted Mr. Drinks at a gas station, Mr. Drinks was gunned down as he drove away from the gas station and waited at a red light. Later, Mr. Stillwell, Mr. Nichols, Mr. Garlington, and Mr. Farley were all charged with the murder. That is one of the acts that we are still would anticipate the court seeing the evidence of during the course of this trial. After grand jury warrants were issued after this indictment for Mr. Williams and 27 other co-conspirators, following searches of phones, wiretaps, and other information that led police to understand the role that Mr. Williams played in the YSL street gang and enterprise. Mr. Williams' home, he was arrested at his home and a search warrant was executed inside his home. While at his home, a sale amounts of illegal narcotics, including those that he is charged with in this
Shout
indictment.
out to the 500 on X,
found.
on Twitter. Much love. Appreciate you. Make sure you
Also
subscribe to
found.
the channel.
Was the machine gun with which the defendant has been charged in this indictment. The gun had a switch. The narcotics included marijuana, codeine, and cocaine. And inside the home were also other guns besides the guns with a switch. The items were seized, and again, Mr. Williams was subsequently arrested, along with other YSL members at Mr. Williams' home. Your Honor, that is the evidence that I believe has been shown throughout the course of this trial and that the state would continue to show. There are several messages between Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams inside the cell
So Donnie,
phone. That
they were very
one of the cell
close. They were very close to reaching a deal, but the prosecution wanted Thug to essentially testify that YSL was a gang, and they could not agree on release conditions. They were close to a plea deal of 15 years probation. You would have actually walked out of the courtroom today on 15 years of probation. Again, that they could not agree on release conditions. So now the prosecution is throwing 45 years of prison at Thug with, I believe it's 20 or 25 to serve.
Mr. Huey asking whether or not a lawyer was going to go and talk to another YSL associate, asking Mr. Williams to send him some money to pay his lawyer off. Mr. Williams asking Mr. Huey, who had been accused of armed robbery, what did he want? Mr. Huey responded with a number. Mr. Williams responded slat. After Mr. Williams stole a star ring from one of the victims in the indictment, he asked Mr. Williams, "Do you have a star ring?" Mr. Williams said yes. Mr. Huey said, "Slat, you can't cash at me $500 so I can make a payment to my lawyer." Mr. Williams responded slat. Mr. Huey sent him his phone number. Mr. Williams assured him through his responses, slat, that he would take care of them. Throughout Mr. Huey's phone, you see messages of this nature between Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams. The court, again, will hear that as this trial continues. The recommendation that the state previously made prior to us reaching this point was made with the hope that Mr. Williams would agree to certain special conditions of probation that we asked him to adhere to, and that he would take ownership and responsibility for being the leader of YSL. Given that those negotiations have broken down, we are asking that the court sentence Mr. Williams as we have asked earlier. And prior to the court imposing a sentence, we would ask that Ms. Shawana Edmonds, who is the mother of Mr. Thomas, be allowed an opportunity to make an impact statement. And that is all that we have, unless the court has questions.
Okay, well, given that Mr. Williams is not charged with the murder of Mr. Thomas, I don't think that that is applicable here.
I checked on that, Your Honor, with respect to count 1. As a co-conspirator, Mr. Williams is responsible for all of the acts of the other co-conspirators, the overt acts. The overt act of the murder of Donovan Thomas is one of those acts.
I know, and this trial is not complete, and so y'all have not yet proven that. Not to mention that you dismissed the murder charge against one of the co-defendants who already fled, so.
Not for that case, Your Honor. That was that was Mr. Drinks.
Okay.
We have not dismissed any.
All right, well, if there is a conviction on the RICO or murder count following the close of this trial, that would be the appropriate time for the victim impact statement to be made. All right, Mr. Steele or Mr. Adams, does the defense want to put anything on the record? Obviously, you need to make a recommendation.
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Many of the statements made by the prosecutor we vehemently disagree with. The prosecutor misstated many pieces of evidence and then took liberty that that is the state's theory. Mr. Williams has tendered a nolo contendere plea to the RICO conspiracy count. And in that count, there are several overt acts. And the first one, Your Honor, deals with a traffic stop. It's on September 9th of 2013. And I won't go through every one because it might take a long time, but just for completeness for this, the court knows, Mr. Williams is driving a car. There is a dash cam video of the stop. The officer who testified at the trial 11 years later, the case was a gun was found under the passenger seat. Mr. Williams is not tied to the gun. He's not convicted of that. And the dash cam video that the officer said would have picked up sound as well as definitely video was never turned over to us, supposedly lost. Could not explain the loss. The armed robbery in another overt act of Mr. Dodson, D-O-D-S-O-N, has the following information. The state only, because we haven't called witnesses yet. So the state put up a man who said nothing except, I don't recall. And then they put in his prior recorded jail calls. That man was taken, his name is Mr. Bean, B-E-A-N. He was taken to Grady Hospital and he was spoken with by a detective. The state vehemently accused me of lying to the jury, that the man never went, Mr. Bean was never taken to Grady Hospital, and that somehow I planted on him to say something on a recording where he said, the reason I implicated Jeffrey Williams is because the police told me that it would be easier for me. Then I had to go through the CAD reports and show that Mr. Bean was in fact taken to Grady Hospital, and Mr. Bean on recording told Detective Quinn, who of course told the truth. Yes, when I spoke to the detective previously, I did lie. Then what the state doesn't tell the jury is that there's another man in the car. He is shot at the scene. He's arrested. He pled guilty. His name is Fred Prethro, P-R-E-T-H-O. And Mr. Prethro is in the Georgia State Prison System, easy to find. Mr. Prethro was in Grady Hospital also, unfortunately suffering from a gunshot wound. And you can hear the medical equipment behind him. And Detective Williams came in and was recording the whole conversation and said how many people were in the car. And Mr. Prethrow names the people: Adrian Bean, who's the gentleman I just said, himself, and Walter Murphy. Are you sure there weren't a fourth person in the car? No, the three of us. The state doesn't call that person. The state does call Detective Williams. So I wanted to ask and inquire on that. The state, to obstruct, if that's obstruction, asked the predecessor court to prohibit me from getting into the fact of any conversation that would have impeached another witness. It's fine. Fred Prethrow's on my witness list as well as the detective, and I have the recordings. In addition to that, Walter Murphy gave a statement while in the hospital, and his statement is very interesting. It's two different police reports, signed the same date, which is September 11th of 2013, and on the first 7 lines of the police report, they're identical. Then all of a sudden, when it gets to, on the right-hand police report, it says Mr. Murphy stated that there were 3 people, I believe, I have to go back, in the vehicle. On the other police report, it states Mr. Murphy stated there were 4 people. There's no reason that they should be different. They're both signed the same. The state doesn't call that officer at all. I tried to ask Mr. Murphy about it. The state objects, and the predecessor judge sustained the objection. Mr. Williams was not involved in the Mr. Dotson. Miss Bennett, that was Mother's Day, May 12, 2013. She reports allegedly an armed robbery. The detective who testified here and investigated stated he never took out arrest warrants for Mr. Williams. And he wrote in his police report, Miss Bennett is not truthful. That is the case that the state is talking about. The state then, there was Brady evidence that they don't turn over, and we find out about it in court after they arrest Miss Bennett because they say she's not cooperating, and it comes out that she told the prosecution over and over again that this did not happen the way that she reported it, and she doesn't remember. As to Donovan Thomas, and Mr. Williams has nothing but empathy, sympathy, and sorrow. They were friends. It is a lie. What the prosecution put before this jury is a lie. What happened here is the prosecution comes up with a theory because they need a motive, they think. I know you don't need a motive in reality to prove a murder case or any other case, but they wanted a motive. So they made it where Mr. Williams and a gentleman named Rich Homie Kwan, his name is Mr. Lamar, he's a performer, and Mr. Williams and Mr. Lamar were close. There are public documents, recordings, Mr. Lamar being interviewed almost every year, and then he talks about his time with this band or group called Rich Gang, and he says every year up to this past year, he, God forbid, died. We can't call him as a witness, how close he is to Mr. Williams. The state, though, made it in this case, or tried to make it, that Mr. Williams and Rich Homie Kwan are enemies because Rich Homie Kwan will not sign with a record label that has nothing to do with Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams doesn't sign to that record label. That record label is owned by a gentleman named Brian Williams, also goes by Birdman, wildly successful. He started Drake's career. He started Mr. Dwayne Carter, performer known as Lil Wayne's career. He started Nicki Minaj's career, just fabulous, powerful person, well-respected in the industry. But the state wants it to be that Donovan Thomas interceded and would not let Rich Homie Kwan sign to Mr. Brian Birdman Williams. And that is the reason that Jeffrey Williams had a feud and killed Donovan Thomas. Your Honor, what the evidence would really show if we kept going to trial, and I could tell you that Mr. Adams and I never thought we'd be in front of this honorable court. We always thought it would go all the way through trial. Was the state is saying that Rich Homie Kwan and Jeffrey Williams don't speak since the fall, and they have a bad relationship the fall of 2014. We would have shown, and we served on the state, December 15th, 2014, Jeffrey Williams in a private plane with Mr. Lamar or Rich Homie Kwan, and they are high-fiving and laughing with each other. That is on audio video. There's a man who the state hasn't called yet, Mr. Martinez Arnold, also known as Duke. It's on the state's witness list. He's represented by the Honorable Ashley Merchant. He's on that plane as well. He would have identified the item And he would have testified that Mr. Williams and Mr. Lamar were very close in December 2014. Then on December 29th of 2014, Mr. Williams, Mr. Rich Homie, Mr. Arnold, others were at Brian Williams' home in Miami, Florida. There was a posting by Mr. Lamar, Rich Homie, and a picture of Mr. Arnold and Mr. Lamar, and they say, Mr. Lamar says, "This is my number one man, Duke," or something to that effect. We would have put that into evidence. In addition to that, Your Honor, on December 8th, 2 days before Mr. Thomas, God forbid, was killed, Mr. Williams is with Mr. Thomas, as well as Mr. Sledge and Brian Williams in Brian Williams' tour bus outside of a fabulous entertainer, artist, Mr. Clifford Harris, T.I.'s studio, and at that time, they were very close. But you also have the detective with the gang unit, Detective Underwood. I asked her within the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, did you do any, and she was on the gang unit the entire time, including today. And I asked her, do you have any evidence about Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas being close friends? And she said, yes, of course I knew that. I said, how about in January of 2015, close to the time of Mr. Thomas's death? She said, yes, they were close friends. Mr. Michael Sprinkle, he's a deputy district attorney in the Fulton County DA's office. He has a recording with Mr. Treadwell. You've heard the name O.G. Bentley. And in that, they're going through the evidence. And Mr. Treadwell, it's important because he has a child, too, actually, with Mr. Thomas's sister. So he's family. And Mr. Sprinkle states this is 2018, this is after the rental car, this is after all of the interviews of Mr. Copeland, this is after the interviews of Mr. Zachary. Mr. Sprinkle's in some of those interviews with Mr. Zachary. Mr. Sprinkle on tape, on recording, states, I do not know why anybody thinks Jeffrey Williams is involved in this killing. He and Donovan Thomas were close friends. It makes no sense to anyone. And Mr. Williams was never arrested, never charged, even in this, as the court just noted, with anything to do with Donovan Thomas's, God forbid, killing. In addition to that, Donovan Thomas has a place that he used to stay with a group of people on Auburn Avenue. Jeffrey Williams performed and did a music shoot there to try to help other people who are suffering in poverty to get out and to be able to be seen and to broadcast their music. Jeffrey Williams does that for everybody because he comes, Your Honor, from the struggle of total poverty, seeing people killed. He saw his brother die right in front of him, and the law enforcement, I'm not blaming anybody, everybody's on edge, but law enforcement would not get any help for him because there are all these people around. It is just what Mr. Williams has gone through is wrong for everyone. It's not just Mr. Williams, it's that whole community, but he's trying to get people out of poverty and out of that community. I have been with Mr. Williams where we have gone to speak with children together, and he tells them, don't be a rapper. Be like Brian, be a lawyer, keep in school. He tells his children, get your education. His family, his whole being, Your Honor, is trying to break the chains of poverty for others, and it has been spun in this courtroom with false statements and allegations against Mr. Williams at every turn. In addition to that, Your Honor, the state talks about the fact that Mr. Williams takes people to Miami. You would have heard evidence if we went forward. I put all these people on my witness list. Not one person on my witness list has been interviewed by law enforcement or the prosecution. They have investigated this case for 15 years. They haven't interviewed all these people. That Sprinter van that you heard about, that was already booked days before. Going to Miami, Florida, Mr. Williams and Mr. Brian Birdman Williams, they did a video shoot for a music video. If anybody would have gone further with the expert for the state, they would have seen that Mr. Williams' cell phone does not contact any of the co-defendants that are named here in Miami, and Mr. Williams stays at a separate location than any of those persons. He would always take people who can't afford it on airplanes, on buses, on tours, to his concerts. He let everyone go because, Your Honor, they never left that area. He wanted to show people you have an opportunity. The world is big. Mr. Williams gave jobs to everybody who'd want to work. He'd give them jobs and security. And I'm not insulting them. They really weren't their jobs, but they were being mentored, but they were given titles and tried to give them respect and opportunity. But if they did not wish to work, Mr. Williams would not allow them to work with them. This has all been turned on its head by the state. The fact that the state has put in Mr. Williams' lyrics are offensive. Mr. Williams has tens of thousands of recordings. On our witness list, we are bringing in all of his people, his recording artists, his engineers, his managers, his record label, and an expert, the Honorable Dr. Eric Nielsen, to talk about how Mr. Williams creates his music. His music is then changed around and merged. Mr. Williams, some of the lyrics you just heard are not even uttered by Mr. Williams. The state has no idea when these lyrics were made. Some of them were made before the shooting of Donovan Thomas that the state is saying this applies to the Donovan Thomas killing with the Tahoe. They are so far afield of where we need to be when we are trying to, God forbid, take somebody's liberty, Your Honor. The state is talking about things like F the judge and I rep my life for real. That's not even said by Mr. Williams, but they don't care to find out. They are on a tunnel vision to try to convict a man who should not be convicted. The statement about I never killed nobody, but I got something to do with that body. If the state just bothered to talk with anybody, that is a Nicki Minaj song with Jeffrey Williams. It is written by Nicki Minaj. That is on the text messages I gave, not the text message, the Instagram or Twitter rather, that I gave to the state. That is out well before this, but the state doesn't care. This is out in 2015 or 16 or 17 or 18, I can't remember, I think 18, where Mr. Williams is asked who wrote anybody, and his response is anybody who's written by Nicki Minaj, and it was. But it was really written and sung. It's a takeoff of a song by Tupac. There's a song that it parallels, which is an inspiration. But here we are with the state. Also, I never killed nobody, but I got something to do with the body. The next line comes up is it's a truancy body. The state can't explain that, so they just conveniently leave it out. Your Honor, there were wiretaps on this case. Mr. Williams, it was going to come out, there was an application to wiretap his phone. The state never presented to a judge. That speaks volumes. The leader of the YSL criminal street gang, who's been involved from 2012 until his arrest, and even according to the state, while we sit here, they never even tried to wiretap his phone. It might have been because they don't really know what his phone number is. So all these communications you're being told about with Mr. Huey, I'm not so sure the state could have gotten anybody to say that's Mr. Williams' phone. This is how the trial has gone for us. But we sit here for almost 2 years since we did our jury selection initiation on January 4th, 2023. Mr. Williams has been sitting in a jail since May 9th, 2022. This is 2.5 years waiting for the conclusion of the state's case and a verdict from the jury, and that's why he is tendering this plea. I'm telling the court this, and the court knows when you came out the first time, it's very hard for Mr. Williams. I am not supportive of what we're doing right now. I'm not against it. But I told Mr. Williams, you okay with me saying that? Yes. I told Mr. Williams that I think we're winning the trial and we should go to verdict. But he told me I can't wait another 3 months if there is any possibility I could go home because I have children that are hurting. I have things to do, and he has some medical issues that he would like to tend to. He eats out of a bag Your Honor. He eats processed food only. He gained 75 pounds during trial. He's lost it since. But it is hard. You know, for me, it's only 3 more months. It's enjoyable, actually. I enjoy coming. It's not that enjoyable for Mr. Williams. He told me he wakes up. Can I say? Yes. He wakes up every day, and it's another day in HE blank blank. Your Honor, the state is talking about, in this case, they put in social media. This honorable court was not here, but the state put in that Mr. Williams, in the indictment, Mr. Williams put out a call for murder. He put $24 million murder for hire on a person's head. That is a lot of money, and that is awful. If they would have read the chat, the Instagram chat, Mr. Williams, right above it, there's a picture of a very well-known, very accomplished musical artist who actually had surgically implanted in his forehead a pink diamond worth $24 million that day. That's what Mr. Williams would talk about. That's the type of evidence that is coming from the state of Georgia in this case. It is wrong. This is all wrong. And I know we're pleading guilty, and I know we're pleading nolo, and I know we're asking this honorable court for a certain sentence, and we'll get to it with the court's permission. But this is the type of evidence that there is. But it is holding this man hostage. And that's not really what we're supposed to do, district attorney time, in the state of Georgia or anywhere. The state then, because I opened on that, then they never bothered to put in all of the chats. Why did it take me to read the chats? In addition to that, going back to Donovan Thomas, talk about Mr. Williams involved, the state did a geofence. A geofence tracks his devices. It doesn't have to be a phone. It could be an iPad. It could be any type of electronic device that targets and is used. You don't have to be on the phone. It's the contact. If he has an app open, it'll capture it. And the state targeted the McDonald's, where they keep saying that Mr. Williams met with people there. They targeted the barbershop where, God forbid, the killing occurred. And they targeted a third location, no, 2 locations. And it comes out, Mr. Williams' devices are not there. It's exculpatory. I don't get that information. I got that because I interviewed Lieutenant Crabtree, and the results can't be found, according to prosecution. I did a motion for that. They just can't find it. That is great evidence for Mr. Williams. It would have also shown clearly that when he does go down from his house after getting this call that I'll talk about from Demise McMullen, he's not with these other people. And the expert for the state, the FBI agent who does the telephone analysis, Mr. Williams' phone does not ping off the same tower as a Demise McMullen or a Mr. Copeland or a Mr. Garlington or whomever. The state of Georgia has misrepresented for 2 years in front of this jury. They have hidden evidence. They have violated Brady. They have falsely accused Mr. Williams. Your Honor, saying that Mr. Williams gets that call 7 minutes after, the state said 6, it was 7 minutes after the killing of Donovan Thomas from Demise McMullen. Mr. Williams was already out of his home. Mr. Demise McMullen's calling Mr. Williams. He's not even there. He's going down to meet with Mr. Kelvin Treadwell, also known as O.G. Bentley. O.G. Bentley was supposed to go to Miami, Florida. They were talking about this deal. And Mr. Williams, that day, he was given another contract. Mr. Williams, by this time, he went from zero money. He is a multimillionaire at the time. He doesn't need the Cleveland Avenue drug deals for $15. He doesn't need the shootings. He wasn't even living in Atlanta since 2018, 19, 20, 21. He came back the very end of 21, 6 months, and he got arrested in May of 2022. In his house, Your Honor, we have everyone on the witness list. There are 12 people living at that house. Mr. Williams opens up any of a car that he has. He'll rent cars for people. Any home he has, he will allow people to live in hotels because people that he knows, unfortunately, are homeless. And he gives them all places to stay, cars to drive around. He is not involved in criminal activity. Mr. Williams just got back in our country. His passport shows it. Right before he was arrested on May 9th of 2022, there were other people in that house with the drugs and the guns. There were people whose the guns are in their names. They were going to come in court and claim the guns. Everybody else was doing as well, but Mr. Williams has entered a guilty plea. I'm not going back on that, but I just want you to know that this case is just wrong to do to somebody with no bond and to hold him hostage. He wants to, you may not do it. He's aware of that. He's aware of that. But the state offered him 15 years on probation. But they keep piling on these conditions. He just said, he made up his mind. He said, I'm just going to go with it. I got to get home. Judge may not let me home, but I'm not doing these conditions and admit that I'm the leader and I'm involved in the killing and my music just promoted everybody to do it. He's not going to do that. So he did not do that. And that's how we wound up here. The state, the night of the killing, people came to Mr. Williams' home. The state tells the court, he said, lay low. What they don't tell you is right after that, he gave money to Mr. Sledge, who said, they're going to kill me. They think I did it. And Mr. Williams said, if you had anything to do with it, I don't want to be with you. And Mr. Sledge said, I just need a hotel room with my children and my bride or my significant other to get to. And Mr. Williams said, be safe, lay low. That's the lay low. In addition to that, Mr. Williams told Mr. Copeland, Mr. Copeland's with the police. Hours after the killing of Mr. Donovan Thomas, Mr. Copeland goes to the police department. Mr. Williams is the person who told him to go. Mr. Copeland said, what do? They're shooting at my house, at my family's house, at my significant other's mother's house. And Mr. Williams said, if you had anything to do with the murder, get out of here. Mr. Copeland denied it. And Mr. Williams said, then go tell the police. Mr. Copeland said, you want me to go to the police? And Mr. Williams said, if you had nothing to do with it, they think you did it, go to the police. In addition to that, Mr. Copeland said, well, I'm going to retaliate. Mr. Williams told him, don't do that. Let 12 handle. That's on recordings. That is on recordings on January 11th of 2015 with Detective Thorpe. Your Honor, as far as Dwayne Carter, a performer known as Lil Wayne, Mr. Williams had no conflict with him. They are friends. We were presenting evidence that right before this shooting of the tour bus is April 26th of 2015. Mr. Williams is performing in New Orleans area. And that's the area where it's Holly Grove, where Mr. Carter, or Lil Wayne, a performer known as Lil Wayne, comes from. And in order to drum up popularity and interest, people get on the internet and they start what's called rap battles, arguments, feuds. That's what happened here, and you would have heard testimony from Mr. Williams' management that they said, start a rap battle. It'll be better for your career. Mr. Dwayne Carter is aware of that. Mr. Dwayne Carter's interviewed. The state's aware of this. He has interviews after this. Are you mad? What's the real deal with Jeffrey Williams? He states, no. He's great with me. He brought popularity to me. He loves me. He idolizes me, and I love working with him. They did an album together. In 2014, they're in the studio together, making music together. It is all made up that Mr. Williams is involved. Mr. Williams gives a statement. The state refuses to put it in and then stop me, the previous judge, from cross-examining the detective. His name is Racy. He met with Mr. Williams in the DeKalb County Jail on the 15th day of July 2015. Mr. Williams is arrested that day. And there's a long interview. And Mr. Williams waives his right to counsel. He tells them, I'm his lawyer. They say, you don't want to speak to us? You don't have to. He said, well, I'll speak with you. And they asked Mr. Williams these questions. What about Lil Wayne's shooting? He said, it was outrageous. I love him. That's my idol. I love Lil Wayne. How about this battle? He says it's promotion. They asked him about his rap lyrics. It's the only person that the state ever did anything about rap lyrics with. And they asked Mr. Williams, what about the rap lyrics? And he tells them, it's hyperbole. He didn't use that word. He used the word, it's made up. It's rhyming. It's made up. Not like the state is saying that I rap lyrics for real. That's not even Mr. Williams' utterance. Your Honor, the point I'm trying to make to you is what the state of Georgia has presented to this jury in this courtroom the past year has been full of untruths, and they know it. The state says that Mr. Williams had a conflict because he named an album with Dwayne Carter, and Dwayne Carter didn't like that. Dwayne Carter's interviewed. He said, that was one of the nicest things anyone could have done to me. It shows how much he really appreciates me. It shows respect and honor, and I appreciate what he did. The state knows this. With regards to Jimmy Winfrey, what the state did is they put in a recording. It's not Mr. Williams. It's a jail recording, Mr. Winfrey and an unknown person. And then unknown person says, when you get out, you're going to get a Porsche and $250,000. Mr. Williams not privy to that. The state looked at all of Mr. Williams' bank records, everything. They undressed him financially. There's zero evidence Mr. Williams did anything for Mr. Winfrey. The state tells you that Mr. Winfrey asked for money for a lawyer. The conversation was, and it's recorded, it was with Mr. Williams' manager. And Jimmy Winfrey said, I need to show that I was gainfully employed for the court. Can you get me something from YSL? And the manager said, yeah, if we have it, and if it's true, yes, you can have it. That is it. There's no evidence that Mr. Williams paid for anybody's lawyer, Mr. Winfrey or otherwise. In addition to that, Your Honor, the social media postings with Mr. Rashawn Bennett, also known as YFN Lucy. So Mr. Williams, the state tells Mr. Bennett on social media, I would have killed you if I didn't like the way you take care of your mother and children. That is the post. What they don't tell you is Mr. Bennett, who is also, to his credit, trying to drum up his career. Mr. Bennett is picking on Mr. Williams, who's a much higher profile artist than Mr. Bennett at that time. And Mr. Bennett is saying that he slept with Mr. Williams' fiance, while Mr. Williams and she are a significant couple, that Mr. Williams' music is awful. Nobody should listen to his music ever. Mr. Williams responds by saying, we can do an album together if you want. Stop this. The man continues of how he's sleeping with Mr. Williams' significant other, and then Mr. Williams responds by saying, I would have killed you except for what you do. That is the context that they don't tell you about. And Mr. Williams did nothing to Mr. Bennett. In fact, the evidence would have shown, if we had time or we would have gone forward, that Mr. Bennett and Mr. Williams are on the red carpet receiving awards in California, sitting right next to each other and taking photographs. This is not the Jeffrey Williams. Jeffrey Williams is a known person who is all over the place. If he did something, somebody wanted him, they can find him. This is not he is not hanging out on Cleveland Avenue. What the state is saying are not true. The situation with Mr. Bennett, so he's in the Fulton County Jail, and he's housed, and there are crazy, sick, violent people, and they're on the phone, and Mr. Myrick, M-Y-R-I-C, is calling other people, supposed co-conspirators. How much will Jeffrey Williams give? He doesn't say that, but that's the theme of it, as well as Christian Eppinger. What the state doesn't tell you is that when Mr. Sumlin is asked, hey, find out how much Thug will pay me to kill Mr. YFN Lucci, Mr. Sumlin says, I don't know his number. I can't get in touch with him. He doesn't talk to me. And that's because, Your Honor, since 2015, and he means no insult, but Jeffrey Williams has had zero contact with Shannon Stillwell until this case, Kenneth Copeland, Demikian Garlington, Justin Cobb, Demise McMullen, Mr. Sledge, Mr. Murphy, all these people. This is a lie. This is a 100% lie, and that's why we tendered a NOLO plea to being a leader of a criminal street gang. Mr. Williams is not a leader. In fact, if it would go forward, on Mr. Huey's phone, there are conversations with Mr. Copeland. And they both say how Jeffrey Williams is a zero, and F him. And they don't talk to him, and Jeffrey Williams never does anything for them. Mr. Huey, Mr. Williams met later. He met him closer in the time of 2020. Mr. Huey's father went through a horrible episode that Mr. Williams knew, and that's how Mr. Williams knew his son, who's Mr. Huey. And Mr. Huey's on hard times, and Mr. Huey's making mistakes. And Mr. Huey, supposedly, Mr. Williams believes, armed robbed a man named Chandler Durham, D-U-R-H-A-M. Mr. Durham is Mr. Williams, and he's a fabulous record engineer. And Mr. Williams states, give him back, tell him to give back the property or he's going to die. The state puts that as an overt act. No one dies, and the property doesn't get returned. Mr. Huey ignores Mr. Williams. The state told you today that Jeffrey Williams sent Mr. Huey a posting that Mr. YFN Lucci is going to be performing on January 19, 2020. That's not true. Mr. Huey sent that to whoever phone that was. And all it says is slat and slatty. Well, I went out to the places that Mr. Bennett was supposed to perform. There's no shooting. There was no fight. There was nothing to report. There's nothing here. In addition, the state says same thing on September 12th, September 2nd, 2022 on Mr. Huey's phone. I'm not conceding that was Jeffrey Williams even having a conversation with him, but even if it was, it doesn't show anything. It says slatty, lay low. Lay low means don't do anything. Get out of the way. That is what it is. That is Mr. Williams' role. Mr. Williams, there is evidence in the record, and there would have been more. He takes people on tour with him. He takes people in the mall with him. But when they do crime or do things to people, for instance, there was a prostitute, and several people gave that prostitute money, $500. And the prostitute, at the end of the $500, getting $500 from several people, had sex with a person, and then she was armed robbed. So all the money came back. Mr. Williams wasn't involved in that, but he heard about it. He made those people find the prostitute and repaid her every dime. People stole from stores that Mr. Williams found about. He went to the stores and he repaid all that. He didn't steal anything. He doesn't need to steal anything. Your Honor, Mr. Williams stands with Elton John. Elton John called Mr. Williams the next coming of John Lennon. Mr. Williams is unbelievable talent. He's not just a rap artist. In fact, when he's interviewed in 2017, he gives a statement and he says, I had to learn rap. He grew up in a house learning other forms of music. He likes all music, but rap hit in his community, and his community raised him. They supported him. They came out to him. They made him get into establishments. And once the establishment saw all the people come out, he got more establishments. And then he went out of that little area in Atlanta to other parts of Georgia, and then to all the neighboring states and throughout our country. And he has performed on every continent but one. He has performed in front of, being the headliner, 300,000 people at one time. He has a real life and career. He is not the leader, and he is not worried about buying jewelry that is stolen. Mr. Williams is actually innocent. I'm not trying to corrupt our plea. That's his plea, and he's entitled to it, and he wants it, and he embraces it. But to me, this is a wrongful prosecution. This is outrageous.
All right, so you're pleading guilty, or your client is pleading guilty to counts 57 through 62.
It's all true.
Do you
Yes, there's a
concede
factual
there's
basis.
a factual basis
I
for
can
those
see.
counts?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay. All right, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. And Your Honor, I'll answer any of your questions, but the point I'm trying to make is 45 years to serve 25 years in prison, when just this morning it was a probationary offer. It was a probationary offer. The state knows, but they want to control. They have this theory of music, and they want to stop Mr. Williams from making music, from entertaining, just stop his life. That's just not right. And it's wrong of the district attorney in Fulton County to do that. If they offer probation, then he's not a 45 to serve 25 years in custody type of person, and he's certainly not the person that the state has stated in front of the court. What we're asking, Your Honor, on count 1, which is the RICO count, to accept the nolo contendere plea. Please sentence Mr. Williams to 20 years to serve 5 years in prison commuted to time served. Mr. Williams has served, as I said, 22.5 years. On count 56, Your Honor, that's the leadership of a gang, nolo plea, 20 years to serve 5 years commuted to time served, consecutive to all other counts. On count 57, which is a gang count, Your Honor, not a leader, guilty plea, 20 years to serve 5 years commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. With regard to count 58, which is possession of, I believe it is marijuana with intent to distribute, 10-year sentence on probation, concurrent with count 1. On count 59, which is violation Georgia Controlled Substance Act, possession of codeine with intent to distribute, 5 years on probation, concurrent with count 1. On count 59, Your Honor, which is violation Georgia Controlled Substance Act, possession of cocaine, 3 years on probation, concurrent with count 1. Count 61, 5 years of probation. It's a firearm count, consecutive to the other counts, consecutive to before count 56. And then count 62, 10 years to serve commuted to time served. That should be a total sentence, Your Honor, that we are respectfully requesting the court to consider. I believe it's 45 years to serve 5 years in prison, commuted to time served, 40 years on probation, credit for the time already served and community time served. As I said, after 3 years of probation, the probation becomes non-reporting, and after successful completion of 10 years on probation, the balance of the sentence be terminated. Mr. Williams asked the court for house arrest for 3 years as part of the sentence, but house arrest specifically defined that Mr. Williams will be in his home or at any lawful employment, touring, studio, performance, business meetings, and the like. Wear an ankle monitor for the first year and pay the costs of same, and the company must be approved by probation department, and the ankle monitor to be affixed within 10 days of hopeful release from custody. Mr. Williams cannot possess a firearm, but he can be around licensed security who are armed or other persons who are lawfully carrying a firearm with their license. And that would be knowingly for Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams can transfer probation outside the state of Georgia. He has residences in the state of California. He has studios in the state of California. Mr. Williams be allowed to travel throughout our country and the world for lawful work-related industries. Mr. Williams wants to perform. He's going to do this anyway, Your Honor, but we made it part of the sentence. At least one concert each year at a venue, if they'll have him over holding 10,000 people, if that is workable for the venue and Mr. Williams' management, and he is going to donate all of the profits that he makes to a 501c3 charity. Mr. Williams wants to pledge $100,000 for the next 3 years to the Fulton County Sheriff's Office if they will hold an illegal firearm buyback to buy back firearms that are not supposed to be on our streets. Mr. Williams does not wish to go near the Cleveland Avenue area, not to insult that area at all, but it is just not a good idea under this circumstance. And he can drive on the highway, but otherwise not come within 1 mile of the area that we call Cleveland Avenue, and we can give the exact dimensions of that area. Mr. Williams must perform 100 hours of community service per year for the next 3 years as designated by probation department. Mr. Williams can associate, and this was agreed to previously, with people who are convicted felon or alleged gang members solely for lawful purpose of making music.
I see Ms. Love shaking her head, and I think it's fair to establish that until the entirety of the negotiations were agreed to, it was all up in the air.
Sure.
That may have been something y'all had already hammered out, but it's not anything they're bound to.
Absolutely.
Fair. Okay.
I agree with that. Mr. Williams can have no contact with any of the supposed victims, and there was an Exhibit A attached to the state's proposed plea agreement, negotiated plea agreement that was sent to you, so we adopt that Exhibit A, but we can give it to the court if you need those names. And Mr. Williams have no contact with any of the co-defendants in this indictment, with the exception of Mr. Quantavious Greer, that is his biological brother, as well as Mr. Sergio Kitchens. He's a phenomenal artist. He goes performer known as Gunna, G-U-N-N-A. Mr. Williams and Mr. Kitchens are contractually obligated, and they frequently perform music together. Your Honor, any other conditions that this honorable court deems appropriate? I want to thank the court for all your time. Always, I want to thank Ms. Percival for everything she has done. I want to thank Mr. Williams for allowing me to stand with him. I really never thought we would be here, but this is his decision. I want to thank the Honorable Keith Adams, who may want to speak, Your Honor, but I can never imagine a better lawyer than Keith Adams.
Mr. Adams, do you want to add anything to the record?
Your Honor, I don't know that there's really much to add. Mr. Steele has represented to the court, I think fully and thoroughly, the breadth of our knowledge of the case, Mr. Williams's background. I think the court has not just heard it from Mr. Steele, but has had the opportunity to sit here and hear some of the evidence and kind of get a feel. You've had a chance also to observe Mr. Williams and then get a feel for him, his background, and so forth. You know, the only thing I can say about Mr. Williams that hasn't been said is that he comes from an area. You might have heard throughout the course of the trial that there was an album, a concert tour. We came from nothing. And that is true. Mr. Williams came from, you know, I hate to use the word abject poverty, but that really is the case. Came from an area where there was a significant amount of crime, where, as you've heard, he's had tragedy in his life and has observed tragedy in his life. And he has gone through a good bit. He has been involved in a lot, but he has raised himself up. He has done the best he could and has done phenomenally well, and is, I think, an inspiration to a lot of people from that community who look to him and see the success that he has gained, and have been fully supportive of him. But he finds himself here. He's in front of you. He is tendering this plea because he accepts responsibility. You have heard everything Mr. Steele has had to say. I can only ask that you follow what we have put before you. You also have, I believe, the paperwork that was given to you by the state, which kind of gives you some idea of what they were looking for as well in terms of conditions on Mr. Williams if we were to have reached some sort of agreement. And we ask that if you feel that there's anything within the state's proposal that might be appropriate in terms of the sentence for Mr. Williams, that the court please feel free to do that. There is nothing that he puts himself before the court. And I think 2.5 years sitting, going through this process, challenging the process, but now standing before you and asking that you consider everything and sentence him appropriately in the way that we've requested. I'd simply ask you, I'd join Mr. Steele and Mr. Williams in asking you to do the same. And I thank you as well, as Mr. Steele did, for your patience with us and for bringing some order to the proceedings that candidly was needed. So that's all I have to say. I thank you again, and I ask you to consider everything that's been put before you.
All right, Mr. Williams, is there anything that you want to say?
Yes, ma'am. I take full responsibility for, my crimes or my charges. I want to say sorry to my family, my mom. My mom got 11 kids. I can't say all their names, my managers, my kids that's not here. Really everybody that got something to do with this situation, I want to say sorry for just having so much time invested into this, and I am a smart guy, I am a good guy, and I really got a good heart, I find myself in a lot of stuff because I was just nice or cool, and I understand that you can't be that way when you reach a certain height because it could end bad, and it don't really have to have nothing to do with you, but it could end bad and it could, fall on you. And I know the choice is yours, it's up to you, and I hope that you allow me to go home today and
We're gonna see.
just trust in me.
We're gonna see,
Just do
Donnie.
the right thing, and
Let's listen
never
in.
see you again unless it's at a bar in the future or something. Just out of this type of situation, I promise you I won't ever be in this type of situation again. I'm going away. I've learned from my mistakes. I come from nothing and I've made something, and I didn't take full advantage of it. I'm sorry. Through these last 2.5 years of my life, you are really, truly, honestly, the best thing that has happened to me, because you made everything fair for me and everybody involved on both sides. I'm sorry to the sheriff, everybody, for just having to put extra time in. I know y'all got paid more money, but I'm sorry for y'all having to put this extra time in to be away from y'all family, and I just hope that you find it in your heart to allow me to go home and be with my family and just do better as a person. I know what I bring to the table. I know what I am. I know the heights I've reached. I know the impact I got on people, period, in the community, all people. I learned that late, these past 2 or 3 years of my life, I kind of learned that late, and maybe it was because I was, probably on drugs or anything, I don't know, but I have came to my senses and I understand what I mean to this world. But I am a good guy, I don't mind doing stuff like free shows, and I always did that. I did free shows and gave it to single parents, millions of dollars. I made $1.8 million on a free show, and I gave it all to single parent charity. And I did 2 or 3 shows that made $700,000 a piece, and I gave it to the breast cancer organization. Like, you know, I do things. Like, I put millions of dollars back into my community for real. I really did. I did more than anybody ever did from my side, you know. But I understand, you know, rap lyrics. I understand how it could be twisted. I understand what it could do to the mind of people. I understand all that, and I promise you, I'm 100% changing that. You know, it's just, I'm older, I'm grown now, you know, and it's just like, I'm smarter. It's more things to rap about. Like, I've experienced a lot of good things. I experienced more bad things, but I
I
experienced
wish
a lot of
Young
good
Thug
things
would
too.
just
And
stop talking right now. I wish he would have
Anyway,
written this
I can go
statement
forever.
Well, I
before
appreciate it.
mentioning
And
it, but let's continue to listen.
I
in.
appreciate that you do realize how much of an impact you have on people. I mean, it's past your neighborhood.
I think he's just
It's
over it at this point,
worldwide,
guys. He's over
especially
it.
young people. And having come up from where you came up from and living in and around that, you know that gangs are damaging to our community. And it may be that a whole lot of rap music and the rap industry is, I mean, honestly, it sounds like a modern day version of kind of WWE wrestling that used to be on television, where people would just get up and posture and act like they hated each other. And it may be that that's a lot of what is going on in the music industry with rap. But whether it is fake or not, it has tremendous impact on kids and young people who think, this is cool, this is what I want to do. Look at him, he's a millionaire. I can do that by being, you know, a gangster in the streets. And that's not true. What you're likely to have happen to you if you're a gangster in the streets is you get shot, you get killed, or you get thrown in prison. And those are, you know, by far the most likely outcomes. And, you know, you've been in here watching the trial, and you've seen the pictures of Mr. Ryan posing with a gun as big as he is at 15 years old and going out and shooting and killing another teenager. And that's what gangs do, and that's unfortunately a lot of what rap music does. And if you are a modern day John Lennon, you know, I mean, he might have rapped too in this day and age. I don't know, but I know you're talented, and even if you choose to continue to rap, you need to try to use your influence to let kids know that that is not the way to go, and that there are ways out of poverty besides hooking up with the powerful guy at the end of the street selling drugs. And, you know, I know that happens for protection sometimes, but a much better way would be getting an education and setting, you know, hanging around with people who set a good example. And you be one of those people that sets a good example. I mean, all right, so that's my high horse on that. I could also go on. But I want you to try to be more of the solution and less of the problem. All right? All right. So it is not lost on the court that the state, had they been able to come to agreement on certain special conditions, was willing to entirely dismiss the RICO count.
Wow.
Was willing to entirely dismiss one of the gang counts, and was willing to entirely dismiss this, you know, machine gun count. Was willing to give a sentence that permitted Mr. Williams to walk out of the door today, and therefore does not seem to be particularly worried that Mr. Williams, if on the streets, would be a danger to society. I'm taking that into consideration in crafting my sentence. And in permitting a NOLO
I think it's
plea
going to
to
be a
the
little
RICO
lighter,
count in
Donnie.
one of the two gang
I think it's
counts,
possible he may get like a
would
suspended
not
sentence,
be permitting the NOLO to the one if you were not pleading guilty to at least
but I think
one
it's
of them.
possible he may walk
But
today.
you are, and y'all admit a factual basis for the counts that you are pleading guilty to. I find there to be a factual basis for those counts, and for the remaining counts with which you are charged. I am going to impose a sentence, and I've taken a little bit of the suggested special conditions from the defense and a little bit of the special conditions suggested by the prosecution. On count one, the court sentence is 20 years to serve 5 years, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years to be probated, and a $25,000 fine. On count two, the sentence is 5 years to serve, commuted to time served. That's the minimum sentence that's permitted on that count. It is required to be run consecutively. I'm going to run it consecutive to count one, but I am going to backload. Oh, I'm sorry, that is not commuted. That is 5 years to serve, and it's going to be run consecutively to count one, backloaded, by which I mean after you serve your 15 years of probation, if you have been successful on that probation, and I sincerely hope that you are, then at the end of that 15 years, I will commute the
Oh no, it's
entire
sounding
rest
promising,
of
Donnie.
any
And
service portion of your sentence.
he's never
to
been
time
convicted
served. So
of any
I'll get
charges
to
like
the
this
end
in the
of it and give
past,
you
but
the
it's
total
sounding
sentence,
like he
but,
may get
I'm also
probation
gonna
here with
impose
some
a
time served, but we're
$15,000
listening.
fine with regard to that count. Count 57, 20 years to serve 5, commuted to time
I'm
served.
hearing
the
5,
balance of
5,
15 years
5.
probated, concurrent with count 1.
With time served.
Count
and
58, 10 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, balance probated,
hearing time
concurrent
served.
with count 1. 59, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with
You all,
count 1.
it's very possible he may walk
65
today.
years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. Count 61, 5 years to serve, that is required to be also a consecutive sentence, so that's going to be run consecutively to count 56 and backloaded. Count 62, 10 years to serve, also required to be served consecutively, that's going to be consecutive to count 61, also backloaded. So essentially, the total sentence is 40 years to serve the first 5 years in prison, but commuted to the time that you have already served, followed by 15 years on probation, followed then by the backloaded 20 years, which can be served in custody and will be served in custody if you are not successful on your probation. If you are successful in completing your 15 years probation, that will be commuted to time served. You are to remain on reporting status for the first half of your probation, active reporting for the first 7.5 years of your probation, and that is pursuant to OCGA 17-10-1, subsection 2, A2A. And Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams, in order to keep him on reporting status, there needs to be good cause shown. We all concede that good cause is shown here?
Stipulate.
All right, I appreciate that. Special conditions of your probation.
What good cause? What do you mean?
Can I have a second, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. You had enough time to talk with your attorneys?
Yes.
Okay. All right, special conditions of your probation. After 48 hours from your release, you are to stay away from the metro Atlanta area, and that's defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. It may change, but you can look that up anytime to figure out what that is. For the first 10 years of your probation, subject to the following exceptions, You are permitted to be in the metro Atlanta area to attend any wedding, funeral, or graduation from high school, college, or graduate school of any of your immediate family members. And immediate family members is defined the same way that you all were contemplating it when you were negotiating. You can get here up to 24 hours prior to any such event, and you need to leave within 48 hours after any such event. In addition, during each year of your probation, I'm going to require that you come to the metro Atlanta area and make a live anti-gang and anti-gun violence presentation 4 times a year, each year of your probation, at a grade school, a middle school, a boys or girls club, anything like that, that type of group. And if you want to, that presentation can include a benefit concert, and these presentations may count towards your required community service hours, which I'm going to impose, that during each year of your probation, you perform 100 hours of community service. You are, and this is required by the fact that there's a gang conviction. You shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any other member or associate of any criminal street gang. Exception to that, if your brother is a member of any street gang, I hope you talk him into getting out of it. Quantavious Greer, and then also Sergio Kitchens, as long as you are contractually obligated to him. That is going to include anybody who is named in this indictment, except as absolutely necessary to conduct the lawful business of your musical career, and to any extent that the state is not agreeing to the exception for Mr. Kitchens. In the event that that part is not enforceable because it is only a portion of a special condition, going to provide that that be severable from the rest of this, and I'll put some case cites in the Senate sheet for that. You are in no way to promote any criminal street gang or any criminal street gang activity, including on any social media platform. You are not to utilize any hand signs, terminology, or language that promotes any criminal street gang. You are not to participate in any criminal street gang activity. You are not to knowingly engage in any contact with any of the victims that are listed in this indictment or with any of their family members. And you may not have in your possession or with arm's reach any kind of a firearm, because you're going to be a convicted felon. And that is, except I know that you have security and you need security. You can be within arm's reach of a firearm that is in the possession of either licensed law enforcement or licensed security personnel that are in your security detail or anybody that you're performing with. You are to submit to random drug screens and not use any drugs unless they are prescribed for you by a licensed physician. You are to execute a Fourth Amendment waiver that will permit the search of your person, residence, vehicles, and electronics for any firearms, any criminal street gang paraphernalia, or any illicit drugs. And as I mentioned, with regard to one of the first of your co-defendants from this trial, at least since I've been involved, to plead guilty, our Uniform Superior Court rules instruct and provide that it is absolutely proper for a judge to grant leniency in sentencing when, quote, the interests of the public and the effective administration of criminal justice are served, unquote. And I think that this plea is in the interest of the public and in the interest of effective administration of justice. Have been trying to ensure that, to the extent I can, this trial also abides by that. It's been challenging at certain times. I find your plea to be freely, knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entered with an understanding of the consequences and I accept it as such. I also need to inform you that your attorneys were going to represent you through either the last day of this term of court or 30 days from now, whichever is later, and any of the filings that were mentioned that need to be filed within that time, they would file on your behalf unless they are permitted to withdraw from representing you before that time. I am not going to impose the conditions suggested by your counsel about the benefit concerts and the donations to the sheriff's office, but I certainly strongly encourage you to do those things and to do and continue to do things that benefit your community and especially help young people to stay out of criminal trouble. And unless there is anything from counsel other than that.
I have one matter, Your Honor.
Okay, and does the state as well?
Your Honor, with regards to Mr. Williams being permitted to come to the Metro Atlanta area or Cleveland Avenue area for funeral or the other items,
Right.
can you also consider, God forbid, there's a serious medical condition of a person that
In
is
his immediate family, certainly, we can add that. And I also meant to mention, because I know you do travel all over in order to pursue your career, that it's permissible for your probation to be transferred to out of state, and that has to be done through probation, but that is fine with the court. And you may also keep your, nobody's mentioned it, but keep your passport and travel out of state and internationally to the extent that you need to do that for business purposes as well. All right, Mr. Body.
Yes, very briefly. Thank you. The district attorney just wanted me to urge the court, due to the fact that the Thomases have been negatively affected incredibly traumatically by what has been discussed by both parties here today, to make a brief statement as she believes that they fall within the exception or within the bounds of Marcy's law. If the court would allow, I understand the court made a ruling earlier as it relates to that, but she wants
All right. Thank you. And I appreciate, well, I cannot even begin to understand what they must, anybody must be going through when they lose a family member to violence or criminal violence. Mr. Williams himself has expressed his own sorrow to the family. I, again, am going to stand by my belief that the appropriate time to hear a victim impact statement from them is at the close of the trial that contains the murder count with regard to their family member. All right, thank you. Okay, court is adjourned. Good luck to you. And I'm going to have there better be no violations, but if there are any, you're coming back to see me. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Hey, all right, guys. Well, you just heard it. Young Thug, although he will be a convicted felon, he had received time served on his sentence. Let me mute this. He has received time served. It was commuted to time served on the charges. He will have to do a 15-year stint of probation. And it appears like a deferred sentence on the consecutive charges. So there will be a lot of conversation on this sentence. There are still, from my understanding, 2 people that are still will need to plea. But you just heard it. Young Thug is getting another opportunity to perform, to live his life. He is coming home. Although he's accepted that guilty plea deal, Young Thug is coming home. I plan to still continue to stay live, folks. as we await to hear more from like a presser with his attorney potentially. So if you all just continue to stand by, Young Thug is coming home. Young Thug is being released to do probation. Now, again, the state originally offered 15 years probation. All right. Just putting this up again. Young Thug is being released. He is coming home. He will have to do 15 years of probation. There was a lot of stipulations to the probation. I'm expecting a press conference momentarily. So, everyone, if you'll just continue to stand by here as we await additional information. And give me just a moment, please.
And she was still pleading with the judge to allow the family member to address the court.
I mean, it's going to have a massive impact. I mean, I'm just sitting there thinking of my cases that are in Fulton County, and I'm going to use this case as precedent because, you know, the allegation from the prosecution is multiple serious felonies that were committed by this alleged RICO conspiracy, which is now, you know, been proven because somebody pled guilty and somebody pled nolo. But it's very concerning that 2 years and all this money and there's no prison time for the leader. So again, my hat's off to his lawyers. Great job. He made the right decision, even though I'm not gonna lie, we don't typically do blind pleas in this profession because
that's right.
Typically
Talk
the judge,
about they need to know that.
That was a blind. So what happened, what y'all saw was the state and the defense could not come to an agreement. So the defendant pled guilty blind to the court. The good thing for him is he was in front of Judge Whitaker and not Judge Glanville, because you could already see where Judge Glanville was going. This was prison time. So that's why it's good to be able to judge shop and, you know, get a judge who's coming in fresh and, you know, hearing the evidence for the first time and not, you know, potentially biased. And, you know, it was a great move by Young Thug. I have to get, because again, his lawyer told you he didn't want to do this. So this was a decision by the defendant, and it worked.
He rolled the dice. One day
he needs to go to Las Vegas.
He did. He bet on himself, and I appreciate what Brian Still said, and it was a lot he said. I mean, you know, it was a lot he said, but I got the essence of what he was trying to convey to the court while sending a message to the prosecution, a very powerful message. And while you watch, I wish Maurice would have got more of the camera on them, because as they were, I saw them whispering when he said Elton John saw a body, like, nah, you know, it was a lot going on in the back.
John Lennon.
They didn't want me in there for that. They know I would have been zooming in. They didn't want me to get the money shot. But anyway, we're going to address that because we are going to have a response as relate to that. But there is another 2 defendants there.
At this point, here's the thing, and this is where the prosecution has to cut their losses. There are 2 other defendants sitting there, and there's no way that those 2 other defendants, in the interest of justice, get more than the person you built your whole case around.
Absolutely.
That's just trial practice 101. If I'm their lawyer, I'm blowing up the DA's phone. You just saw what Judge Whitaker just did. You have a heated and contested election where people are making allegations on your record. This case was supposed to be the cherry in the cap. And now you have 2 RICO conspiracy cases where the lead defendant saw no jail time.
No jail time.
Beverly Hall saw no jail time. Jeffrey Williams saw no jail time. And you got another one on the horizon with Donald Trump that you cannot continue down this path. So, you know, it's a great win for the defense. It's a great win for Young Thug and his family. But you have victims in this town that are very upset right now. And that's why the prosecution was trying to get that, you know, that impact statement in. And I think the judge is right. Y'all haven't proven he had any connection to this alleged murder. So we're not going to hear from victim impact. And so this is going to be interesting. The fallout from this is going to be.
I knew when she said that, I knew the prosecution was about to get, I used the term dog walked in the courtroom.
Yeah.
When she said, no, we're not doing that. Let's get to that point. Let's get to that bridge. You're not there yet.
Yeah.
And I think that at this point, Mr. Abadi needs to take the wheel, because right now, this is a serious black eye for the prosecution's office, and particularly Miss Love. You know, I had to say Miss Love because she went hard, and she was doing things, and it was, as we learned a lot, we gleaned a lot from this, the way they make a case. We seen how investigators were called out. We seen how witnesses got on the stand and started saying that they said this to me, they were intimidating me. We seen how people were forced on the stand.
All right, listen, I want to
state
something
with
here.
the threat of going.
While we're awaiting a press conference in this case, just so that everybody is aware that there is a very long-awaited documentary that is going to be dropping on Thanksgiving night. If you are familiar with my channel, then you are absolutely familiar with Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart has done an interview here on my channel where we talked about the alien interview video that was released back in the mid-90s. John has been doing everything to identify who Victor was that originally sold that tape of that alien interview that was purportedly recorded in Area 51 in the, I think it was S2 or S4 section of the complex. He is going to be having a pay-per-view showing of his documentary this Thanksgiving night. I plan to be meeting with Jon Stewart again over the next couple of weeks, and you will be seeing some trailers dropping and things of that nature so that people, so we can bring some attention to this documentary. All right. And John is going to be coming back onto the platform. I'm really looking forward to interviewing with him again on this. And so keep yourself tuned, especially to Twitter, to those of you on X, as I do cover a lot of UFO, UAP, NHI type related materials. Definitely keep the bell on for my interview coming up with Jon Stewart. I just wanted to make that announcement. Anyway, guys, we're waiting on a press conference, and at this time, Young Thug is coming home. He is going to be doing 15 years of probation. He was sentenced to, I believe 5 and 10 year sentence on one of the charges, but ultimately that has been converted to time served. He's going to be doing a 15-year probation stint, and his lawyer will continue to explain the sentencing. We'll come to know more about the sentencing. Let's continue to tap into Mr. Dennis Byron here as we await further information.
The most important case in Georgia history, and again, y'all lost. So I just think that today, even though it was this was one of the longest allocution hearings I've ever seen.
Ever.
It was a closing argument. It was an opening statement. I think they presented some evidence, and it was like, okay, I thought he was pleading, but it all worked out for him. Salute to his lawyers. Man, yesterday's price.
We got the feed is back up in the courtroom. Stand by.
Okay.
A machine gun, which was count 62, which was 10 years to serve consecutive. And then he was charged with
Can you hear it?
count
Yeah, I
63, which is possession of a firearm by convicted felon pursuant to 1611-133. I know my math isn't the best, but that's life plus a couple.
All right, guys. Just to provide a little bit more information here, give me just a second. All right. So, um, as of right now, this is kind of where this stands. So, Young Thug is officially free to come home today. The state of Georgia agreed to a non-negotiated plea with a very hefty amount of probation, but this also will secure his freedom. Today, as you all have been watching, Judge Whitaker passed the sentence of 40 years in totality. He was also given a commuted sentence of 5 years, served with 15 years on probation, and will have to serve 20 years in custody if the terms of his probation are not completed. That's like a deferred adjudication, something you all may be familiar with in the state of Texas. So essentially, if for any reason his probation, he messes up during probation, he will go to prison and serve 20 years. If probation is done successfully, then, it will be converted, again, to like a time served scenario, essentially. But the key is he's got to get through these 15 years of probation with dealing with random drug tests. He's got to deal with random checks of his, his living area and all that. He's going to have to get permission to do, a variety of different things, travel. The judge did not take his passport. The judge did not rule out international travel even, because he is a man that does have to make his money and he does operate a business. Excuse me. So again, Judge Whitaker passed a sentence of 40 years in totality. He's been given a commuted sentence of 5 years, served with a 15 years on probation. He will have to serve 20 years in custody if the terms of probation are not completed. His lawyer, Brian Steele, also requested that he still be allowed to associate with co-defendants, his brother Quantavious Grier, Unfunk, Sergio Kitchens, Gunna, in order to continue his rap career. The state has been recommending that Thug serve at least 25 years in prison, but this is clearly a much sweeter deal. And the judge, Paige Whitaker, did mention that it is not lost on her that the prosecution was willing to allow Young Thug Jeffrey Williams to leave out of that courtroom today on 15 years of probation. Young Thug decided to enter this guilty plea in his YSL RICO case, which will bring an end to his part in what has become the longest criminal trial in Georgia history, a 10-month jury selection process. Thug switched his original plea that he made in 2022, in which he pled guilty to his role in criminal street gang activity. He also pled no contest, nolo contendere, to conspiracy to violate the RICO Act and of leading a criminal street gang. Prosecutors were recommending that he got a 45-year sentence, and they wanted him to serve 25 years in prison, followed by 20 years of probation after plea deals broke down, in which they were willing to offer Thug 15 years probation and for him to walk out and leave and go home today. Then once those negotiations broke down, they then said, we now want him to have a 45-year sentence, 25 in prison with 20 years of probation. There are two co-defendants now, Gotti and Shannon Stillwell, that also rejected plea deals and will continue their trials, while 3 others accepted plea deals earlier this week. Not only has this been the longest trial in Georgia, longest criminal trial in Georgia history, it's also been a very eventful one. between a defendant allegedly trying to pass drugs into open court, to Thug being accused of sending messages to his girlfriend Mariah the scientist through his attire, a photo that was taken by Mr. Dennis Byron, my good friend. And social media has absolutely never stopped discussing this case. Every day of this case has been televised, okay? Every single day. So what I'm expecting to happen here is for a press conference to occur. And I don't know how that press conference is going to look, but I'm expecting one to happen today. So with that being said, okay, with that being said, I want to tap back in to the one and only Mr. Dennis Byron.
Mr. Stillwell, you're facing 2 life.
I know. I'm sure they calculated this in their head and figure out a way forward. I've been watching some of the trial. I've seen Maxwell. You know, he's a great lawyer, so hopefully he knows what's coming. But you know, you got to figure out what's your play now. It's a difficult position to be in.
Well, one good thing is the jurors got to know Max Shaw and as well as Doug Weinstein, and I think that's a good thing because they definitely came across as likable litigants, and hopefully, you know, for them, you know, that works to their benefit, you know, because that I don't think that they're going to stop putting their foot on the gas. I think they're going to go even heavier. I think that they still have a hard. The prosecutor still has a very, very good adversaries with this case, and I think that they're ready. They're ready to turn up. Now, my question, I guess this should be a question to me. Will the public be as interested in covering this case gavel to gavel now that there's two standing? Yes or no? You'll put comments. You can put the comments in the comment section. What do you think, RG?
I think you know the answer to that. I mean, you can see on social media right now who the public was watching.
Right.
They were watching Jeffrey Williams, Young Thug. They wanted to see Young Thug come home. They're seeing Young Thug come home. I don't think that this is a high-profile case anymore. It's a regular gang case with two litigants. I mean, it's not even the same level of the amount of defendants. Everybody has fallen to the wayside. And
they're gonna move. They may move this court. Move it
up to Judge Whitaker's courtroom.
Oh my goodness.
So, you know.
Oh my goodness, this is a lot to unpack. You know, what time is it now, guys?
But here's and this is me being a little selfish here. If these two take a plea, is this still Georgia's longest trial, or is it Georgia's longest plea hearing? Because APS went to verdict.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is not going to. Well, is it still a RICO case now?
No, because it's got two people.
It's not a RICO. It's just a murder case.
It's just a basic gang
not a
murder
murder
case.
Wow. Wow. Listen, I know a lot of you guys and men and women are watching need therapy because this has been a lot for you.
Yeah, y'all have been on a roller coaster for 2 years. I mean, but salute. Y'all know now how the criminal justice system works in Georgia. You have a PhD in law because you saw it all.
They saw it all, and now there's less trust for this system. But the judge showed compassion to Doug. She showed real compassion to him because I tell you, it wouldn't have been the same with Glanville. Didn't Glanville sentence Doug's brother to 9 years when they found a gun in his car?
I think so.
9 years because they found a gun. The gun that belonged to him. So now you got. I'm sure Doug will keep his nose clean. He's going to be around. His handler's going to keep him covered. You know, he's going to be good.
I think his music is going to change substantially at this point. Substantially. Right. I mean, maybe he'll become Andre 3000.
Well, maybe become John Lennon.
John Lennon, Elton John.
He can travel. He can travel.
But here's the thing: he can't come into Metro Atlanta though, except for, I guess, to check in with probation.
He don't need to. Get up out. You don't need to. I would say, and that's the problem. People come back to the hood, and the hood don't have the same love for you when you lived in the hood. They don't. Anyone lived in the hood knows. But once you leave the hood, it's best to stay out the hood. You can go do things for the hood, but you don't need to be in it and trying to rub elbows with the people that will envy you every time you walk through their neighborhood because they know you're going to eventually leave and they're stuck there. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I guess so. I still think, you shouldn't do the things that your old associates do, but it's kind of hard to not at least. Now, I'm not saying he need to go back over there, but I'm just saying it's kind of hard not to, because then people start saying, "Oh, you don't know us no more." So it's a balancing act. But in his case, he don't need to go over there no more.
And he said so in his addressing the court. He said, he was being nice to people, and it bit him in the ass. Basically, I'm being nice, and and I truly believe that people took advantage of his niceness. And that's the other thing. And when you have people that you grew up with, that you've been riding with, and then you leave it, they're gonna be. I would hate to say they're leeches, but they're gonna be doing things, and they're gonna expect you to bail them out. And he was just a loyal. He was loyal to them. And this plea, it's nothing I've ever seen before. I've never seen a plea like this.
No.
This has so many moving parts, and there's so much, that they had to negotiate. And shout out to Brian Still and Keith Adams, because they definitely did their thing. And they're gonna have a press conference now. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's gonna be a late night press conference.
They need to have one. I mean, again, Keith and Brian, I just tweeted it out. Best lawyers in the business, hands down. Keith is my mentor, taught me everything I know. If I ever get in trouble, I'm calling Keith Adams, and of course, definitely calling Brian. So
shout out to
them. Y'all need to make them have 1 million followers, because they are the best.
Oh, well, listen. I'm gonna tell you something. Their stock has risen. The fact that he's walking out before Thanksgiving. When is Halloween today?
Halloween's not over, so he's walking out before Halloween.
And ladies and gentlemen, he will become released from the Fulton County Jail. No, Cobb County. He goes back to Cobb County.
What, does he go back to Cobb?
Yeah, well, that's where he's been housed at. They're gonna take him back to Cobb County.
He go talk to probation. He shouldn't have to drive the bus back to Cobb. They should take him to Fulton, process him out, let him out, and then he can go back to Cobb on his own and get his stuff.
Like he really need that stuff.
Yeah, just let that stuff go.
Leave that. Don't go back. Don't go back. So the next time you probably see Thugs doing a Stop the Violence commercial, because it's a lot in there. It's a lot to unpack. It's
gonna take several days to unpack what we just saw.
It's gonna take several days, and again, they were working. And I told people, because I had a little inside. I told people that they were negotiating. The plea, he didn't take the plea when he because they were negotiating. They offered him something that he couldn't live with, and what they offered was he had to admit that YSL was a street gang. He wasn't taking that. He wasn't taking that. And why? Because he built his brand around YSL.
Yeah. So
what he's going to call himself if he did that? And they didn't say he had to disassociate himself with YSL, the record label.
Yeah, no, not the label, but he had to say it was a gang.
He had to say it was a gang. I don't know.
He bet on himself and he won.
He bet on himself and he won. I think people have to look at the takeaway, but everyone say love is big mad. She was scraping and scrambling over there. Yo, I said, gee, she's scraping and scrambling over there.
She could go take lessons from Marsha Clark.
No book deals for you, man. No book deals. You were able to get me out the courtroom for what, 2 days?
Yeah.
But it's all good. It's all good.
And let me get out of here. The family's here. This was great.
Yes. Thank you, Jay.
Movies gonna be made about this and books, and we just
absolutely
for y'all.
I'm on one already, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you follow Attorney Griggs at. Tell them where they gotta follow you at, bro.
At Attorney Griggs on all social platforms. ATTORNEYGRIGGS on all platforms.
Voting is Tuesday.
Make sure you vote. We have early voting that ends tomorrow, and then Tuesday is election day. Make sure you vote. Y'all see, voting is important. Everybody in that courtroom, with the exception of the defense attorneys, are elected. So the judge, the prosecutor, the sheriff, all of them, and the jurors are registered voters. So make sure you vote so you can be a part of the process.
Absolutely. Thank you, G. I appreciate you.
All right, man. Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. This is, whoo, man, I tell you. And it's something else I got for you guys, but I just have to wait. We kind of putting the finishing touches on the piece of artwork. I would just say artwork with the pen coming down the pipeline, because we got to make sure the record is straight. The record has to be straight at the end of the day. Everyone has to get their shine, and I am going to make sure everyone gets their shine. Everyone's gonna get their shine. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate everyone who's been following this case. It's been a lot going on in this case. I am so glad that this part of the case is over with. And I think I should still cover this case to its conclusion. Just not every day, because I got to head to New York. But ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful. Actually, I'm not going to leave yet, because this is therapeutic, because a lot of people were going through it. A lot of people were feeling like this is too much. I can't take it. I need something to get. Now, what are you guys going to do? This case is not over with, but the star of the show has taken the show on the road. Has taken the show on the road. He's going to do everything he has to do. I truly believe that. And right now, I can tell you, around the globe, hip hop is celebrating, because he walks out there while he has taken his responsibility. He walks out there with his head up high, and he didn't allow give the prosecutors the benefit of the doubt to take that to the jury. He said, "Listen, I don't trust the prosecutors. I trust the judge." He has more trust in the judge than the prosecutors. That's big. He has more trust in the judge than the prosecutors. And we see how they get down. And now the spotlight is on that prosecution office. The spotlight is on them now. Now everything that is being done out of that office, they're going to be scrutinized. There's some good prosecutors there. I can't lie. There's some great prosecutors there, but there's some that are just vindictive, if I can say. Vindictive, I can say. But I want to drop the link, because this will be unfair. I want to keep this up for a little while. I want to drop the link. I want to talk to the people. I want the people to give the feedback, because you're sat here with this. You're sat here with me. You saw what I had to go through. You saw what everyone else had to go through. You saw the struggle that I had to deal with. You saw how they would say, he did this, he did that. No, but it's not about me. It's about justice and about the fairness in the judicial system. And everyone deserves fairness. And if we don't get fairness, today it was Young Thug, tomorrow it could be your family. I dropped the link in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to come up, I'm going to leave that link right there. Those who are watching on Twitter, those who are watching on YouTube, those who are watching across America, you can come up and talk about this, because this is significant. This is a significant ending to ending for Young Thug and most of the other co-defendants, because you remember there are other co-defendants that are sitting waiting for their case to come to the forefront. Yes, there are others. So if you're watching on Twitter, you can come over here and click on I dropped the link there. If you want to come up, make sure you type it in. I want to come up and add some commentary or whatever you want to do. Not whatever you want to do, because this is not a free-for-all, but this is your opportunity. I'm going to leave the link there for the next 5 minutes. How are we doing over there? How's the sound? The other thing, I apologize for the sound. I didn't want to shut the system down while we were broadcasting, because if I did that, it may take a minute to bring it back up. So that'll be the next order of business, just to shut it down and bring it back up. But this has been so much. I was literally in a supermarket. I was in a supermarket when I got the alert. And I was driving, I was weaving the traffic, and I had the groceries. You know, you guys who was watching me, you know I bought some good stuff. I don't know what I'm gonna eat tonight. I haven't eaten dinner. So you guys got about another 15 minutes with me. 15 minutes. That's it. You got no more. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Absolute. Toy B, appreciate you. Appreciate everyone that listen. It's not easy. It is not easy. I took it, I'm gonna be honest, I took a hit. I took a nice hit. But while the docket is still open, we're gonna still respond. I'll just leave it at that. He was trying to find me. Where you trying to find me at? I'm not eating salmon. I'm not eating salmon tonight. I ain't eating salmon. I had to fish. When last I had fish? Man, I just had mahi. I had mahi the other night. The way I prepared that mahi, put that thing and seared it up nicely. I always do the little sprinkle there. I love it. Listen, anyone that knows me know I love being in the kitchen. I love cooking. I don't let no one cook. I said, no, honey, you don't have to cook. I'll cook. You don't have to do that. No, I'll cook. I'm funny like that. Guys, stand by. Hey. Yeah. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I'm back. Man, I'm gonna tell you something. I did think it was gonna go the distance, but as you heard, Doug didn't want to wait to the next 90 days for the prosecution to rest the case, because then it would have to go to the defense and they would have to fight it out. This was the best situation. He has to get, first of all, he's been financially impacted significantly just for these 2.5 years. There have been people that are depending on him. He will be with Mariah the Scientist. As a matter of fact, hold on. This is for Mariah the Scientist, because this is significant. He probably gonna go get married, as he should. Hold on a second here. I'm gonna put up a throwback. Here's a throwback, ladies and gentlemen, my little petty. Okay. Oh, is that LeakYou? Ah, ah, ah.
Hello.
What's going on? What's going, girl? You gotta listen. Listen. I need you to
That's
come.
me.
Take the picture because they must. No sense at all. It makes no sense. But some people ask me, so Mr. Brown, why didn't you say something why didn't you say something right there? Because it was a closed-ended statement made by the judge, and she had made an order. But we are responding in anyway. But it wasn't the time for me to respond. First of all, I had to take in what just happened because we all were anticipating something big happening when Mr. Nichols was getting on there to take his plea. And the first thing she says, Mr. Byron and Miss Sylvia, please come up. Hold on, ma'am. The world's waiting for you this to happen. Why are you trying to? Because she knew that and then this is my belief. She knew that all eyes would be on this. And ladies and gentlemen, I had put the sergeant in that courtroom on blast early on. I posted the picture on Twitter. Got over 70,000 views on it. They weren't happy. They weren't happy with that. This is the person who's in the courtroom every day. If I said the guy did something wrong, I said it because I know for a fact. But I'd say they stick together. I don't doubt that this was a planned attack, and they wanted to make when they were saying that, oh, you guys you violated before. Not me. I've never had a court violation. Never in my life I had a court violation. I never violated Rule 22. Like, no, I don't do that. But my point is, it was done intentionally. They knew that all the media was watching, and they wanted to bring me on there and try to disrespect me. But it's all good. If anyone's smart, they saw the play was happening because no one got the time for this. You could have told them, don't come into court. But then you say you can continue recording today. The plea deal. I think was the best and I think what people should also understand that a innocent man is not going to plead guilty to charges that he didn't have some kind of involvement in, and that's the reality of it. Most people won't plead guilty unless they know them. They may have some kind of culpability, but if you stand on, but there are people who still in jail who say, I'm innocent, and I'm not taking a plea. And I think, people got to recognize that this guy is not doing all this because he had nothing guilty to do. They're not just going to turn back around and say, I didn't do this. No, they're not going to play in people's face. It happened. Everyone took their responsibility. I knew that when Nichols took his plea, and then when Mr. Huey took his plea, I said, okay. Because Mr. Huey, you got to understand, he was in heavy. I think that's what triggered Doug to go and take the plea, because Mr. Huey was very connected to the communication with Doug. And, so he didn't have to come back and testify, but they still will be playing recordings that would be from the end of Doug. So I understood what was happening. So me personally, while this is the longest trial in Georgia history, and it's still continuing, people had to realize the trial's still going on starting Monday. So it will probably, I think it will probably be over in a month. I mean, if they go. If it ended up in these type of plea deals, I doubt it very seriously. Because if you have the bull by the horn, then why release it? Why release it? And even with the defendants, if you feel that you're completely innocent, you're not taking pleas. So they while the prosecution got wins on the board, it's how they got them. How they got them. They hit them with these football numbers. These are serious numbers. Everyone got some serious numbers in the back end. This is ideally, if I knew that I was looking at all this type of time, maybe in the back end, I might have, went the distance. But if I know I'm guilty, I'm not going to this. I'm not rolling the dice when I got children out there. I have a girlfriend that is out there. He's still young. He has he can do so much for the community. He has no need to be doing any criminality. He doesn't need to be around people that's going to try to get him in a situation. He's not. If he does that, then he's stupid. I don't think he's going to do that. I think Doug's, seen the errors of his ways. He can't help everybody while you can try to help some people. And I learned that lesson even covering this trial. You cannot help everybody. Some people, it's out for themselves, and they don't care who they take down with you. They don't care. So I get it. If you don't, the people who have nothing to lose, they won't care. Some people have nothing to lose. They don't care. I'll take them down with me. I don't care. I don't care. I'll take them down with me. So and right, it's a flex, and people are going to forget their names. Maybe not y'all. Well, not I won't say that, but I would just say, Gotti, he has, he's an artist as well, and he's someone that played an integral part in this trial. But his attorney wants to go the distance, and I'm not, because we don't really know who shot Donovan Thomas. It seems like some people that aren't in that courtroom or never on trial might have been the shooter, and that's what they got to convey to the jurors. There's a shadow of a doubt. There's a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, so let me just post this comment, and I agree with you. So yeah, people will risk their reputations for some attention. I agree with you. I agree with you. Let me ask you a question, since we both have mics. What did you see about this trial that made it interesting for you? What was some of the things that stood out for you? Right. Guys, stand by. It's a press conference right now. Let me pull the press conference up, ladies and gentlemen. Let me pull the press conference up. I have them right here. Can you hear that? Oh, you can hear. Hold on. Hold on, guys. Stand by.
Cannot thank you all because without you guys, no, this just keeps rolling in injustice. It's got to end. I want to thank everybody so much for everything you do. I cannot thank you all because without you guys, no, this just keeps rolling in injustice. It's got to end. The criminal justice system, the presumption of innocence, these Brady rules,
Can you hear it?
ethical rules, they have to survive.
Nicole?
All are victims of this. Anyone can sit in that.
LeakYou, can you hear? Hold on. Yeah, it's on the stream. Come on.
To those of you that may be listening in, or you may not have been able to hear in the last few moments.
They're finished already. Hold on.
Okay, they're already
If
finished.
anyone else will come up.
All right. But bear with me. I'll replay this interaction with Dennis here in a moment.
Hold on. We go, Jeff. Big Jeff. Hold on. Hold on. It's one. You should hear it now.
I don't.
Who's that?
Do I see Miss Sylvia Ware? I wasn't paying. Y'all ain't been paying no attention.
Oh.
Big Jeff standing on big.
Okay, so the press conference is over. Yeah, that's Sly. Okay, I'm hearing feedback. I don't know why.
I'm gonna mute my mic.
No, it could have been you, but it's okay. I think we saw a good conclusion. I think we saw a good conclusion to the this case. But I think most of the people have decided to leave. I think it's important to follow how this case ends, because ultimately these two guys are the last ones standing. If they're guilty, it'll be out in the trial. If they're innocent, that too will happen. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, listen, I had to come up and commend you for all of your hard work, Mr. Byron. It's truly great to have, to have met you all those years ago. And here we are. I commend you. Great job on all of the coverage. And I just wanted to come up and just say hello to you. And, maybe we can do a little something and have you come over to the platform so we can talk a little bit more about this viral picture that kind of caused a little bit of an uproar a few days ago. But at the end of the day,
what we can do.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I know for a fact you would not have done anything if you did not feel you had permission to do so.
Absolutely
I
not.
stand
I
by
don't
that.
get
I
that.
know you. So
Anyone who knows me know I don't do that.
no.
Again, just when you got media that is very vocal and giving the raw truth, sometimes that makes people uncomfortable. And
That's right.
you see what happened, and they tried to silence me, but you can't silence me. No, that's not the way you silence me.
No.
Silence me by showing respect, and that's it.
That's right. Well, listen, I'm going to drop off, but I'll be in contact with you, and again, much appreciated, and I'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Byron.
Thank you, love.
Bye now.
Appreciate you. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. To those of you, some of you may not have heard that interaction with Mr. Byron. You know how it is when you're streaming to multiple places, right? So let me go back to the beginning, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a highlight reel as well in the YouTube. We'll do like a little highlight reel here. Give me a sec, folks. Thank you. And then you'll be able to hear this interaction, and it's going to roll out as as an additional video here on YouTube, which will then be put on other platforms. So give me just a moment. Just a moment, please. Thank you. We go in the live control room. And we are going to do a highlight reel. And we are going to go ahead and we're going to play this interaction, and then I'll roll the highlight reel off from there. Make sure this is all right. Let's go.
How do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? You feel like, hey, this is for her. He goes home. She gets a conviction. He keeps his nose clean. Everything goes away. So it's a win-win. She got what she wanted, and this didn't drag out to the polls, and he got what he wanted, and he can. I don't know. Can he vote? I think he can vote. Well, can he vote, ladies and gentlemen? I gotta check. I don't know if he can vote. Can he walk to the polls and vote? Well, he can keep his passport so he can vote. And that's the other thing. He can keep his passport. He can travel. He can listen. He's good because he's going to be in demand. This is like 2 years of marketing and promotion for the big show.
Yeah,
he's going to make this back in few bookings. When I say few bookings, because he's going to sell out arenas. He's going to be good. This is a lot. 2.5 years. He got himself clean. And look at the other benefits.